Well, OBS crashed on me, and I'm still double checking because now I'm scared that that something might happen. But things seem to be fine now. Okay, here we go. It's not any more delays. I poorly put my tea over there. Oh well. Anyway, hope everyone's doing well. Everyone's staying safe out there. Jumping right into it this week. This week on Walker. I'm not surprised that the big cliffhanger gets resolved in 5 minutes. It kind of seems like just your typical TV trope that it's all fine, everything's gonna be fine, that sort of thing. Even I knew going into this episode, yeah, everything was gonna be fine. Nothing terribly happened was gonna happen, but it did actually bring some mental insight on a couple of our characters, and that's kind of where the painting is for this week. Well, this is, you assume that this was going to be a very action-heavy episode. That's kind of like the retaliation for the shooting of Captain James. It ended up not being the case. And what we ended up getting was actually quite something I think that we needed, just like a developmental update. Because last week we kind of focused on a lot of the characters to kind of, we were back from break. We're in a new year. What is everyone's status going into this new year? And with this episode, we kind of had to simmer down a little bit, kind of focus on a couple of the characters instead and have everyone else kind of relegate to just supporting to background roles this week, which isn't a bad thing per se, but it does help out with just where we need to we just need to have a mental check-in with our characters because, it's not just physical development, it's not just, life changes. Also, what are they doing mentally, especially James and Walker and a little bit of Liam and even Trey to an extent. Well, third extent. I don't know why I mentioned Liam. Well, I guess I'm spoiling a little bit to the end, but honestly, again, yeah, this episode was just solid again, like last week. It's a little bit less, but it does do a lot more in just terms of character. And that's one of the benefits when you do a TV show in general, that you have more time to spend with the characters and you get to actually witness the developmental front, and then you get to see how they grow. Or not even in most cases grow, but also just take stock and just realize this is what they're currently up against, and what does that lead to them going forward. So that being said, let's go for the butcher recap and talk about this week's episode of Walker. Hopefully so we begin exactly where we left off last week. James is on the ground. Trey's shouting. The shooter's shooting. Shooty. That's kind of what we just pick up. Trey, I completely forgot last week. I thought, Trey's in danger. He's not going to survive this. And I realized, boy, he was in the army. I'm like, he's going to be fine. This isn't going to be a problem. So he picks up the gun, gets James back to a safe position, which is where he should have been at the first place. But Trey takes over. He does manage to get a couple good shots of the shooter. And now the attention is focused on getting Captain James to a hospital. Thankfully, the ambulance is nearby, so they immediately load him up. They start driving towards him. Of course, he's doing the traditional gunshot in the very major area, bleeding out a lot moment where he's just saying random things, something about Walker. And Trey gets his badge covered in blood, and even when they get to the hospital, and the doctors take it from there. And Trey's just looking at the badge, just obviously giving us the impression that, yeah, James could be in danger. There could be something wrong with him. And then about a few scenes later, but before we get to that, the Walker family is still playing some games night. I'm just like, Jesus, you're still on games night? I mean, come on. And also, I guess Liam and his boyfriend / ex-fiance / I don't know what the hell they are anymore, just left in the middle because nah, I'm not doing this. So August tags in a little bit, and they're playing, I don't even know what they're playing, something about the law or something, I don't really know, but everyone's getting calls, and that's when the news are starting to hit that, yeah, James is in the hospital. It could be pretty bad, so the entire Walker family sans Grandma Walker. I guess someone needs to watch the ranch, apparently. Yeah, I really don't know what, that's kind of weird. We get an episode without Grandpa, an episode without Grandma, then maybe an episode with both of them, and then an episode without either of them. It's such a weird way to work, and it could just because they're more at risk to get COVID, so I guess they opt to give them a couple weeks off so that if something does happen to them, they're fine, I guess. I really don't know the logistics behind that, to be honest with you, but either or, they're at the hospital, and Trey's giving them the brief summary of the events that occurred, and everyone's just focused on James. And thankfully, not too long in, a nurse comes in, tells them, yeah, it didn't hit any major arteries. organs. He should be fine. He's still in a coma. He's still resting, but he should be good. There's a good chance he'll make it further. So it's all fresh breaths. Everything seems to be fine. Hopefully, no issues. Trey does give Walker the badge just to kind of symbolize that, like, yeah, with James out of commission, you're kind of in charge now, and that isn't something Walker kind of like takes notice until later on when he does the traditional, like, he's just sleeping next to the hospital bedside, just wait. Which I understand, yeah, for someone you care about, you're gonna do that for them. But like, it's still kind of weird because again, we jump into Walker and James' relationship in the show as just it's established, and we're just gonna roll with it. Where for me, if Mickey was still on the show, then if Mickey was in that position, then obviously, of course, Trey would be there, but Walker would be there too because they're close to each other. We've seen that developmental front. Walker and James, we haven't gotten really much with them. Like we got enough, but it isn't enough to like for me to like really feel like that for us as viewers that it's earned. If that makes any sort of sense. I don't know if I'm making sense. I don't know. Hopefully you are getting what I'm saying. So he's there, and of course he's trying to take it easy. Obviously James wants to get some updates on the case, but Walker's like, take it easy, man. You just got shot. You just came out of surgery. Take a little bit of a breath, man. And obviously the focus is on there. And James at the moment kind of like just signifies that regardless of if he survives or not, which he is going to survive, but just in case, Walker's in charge now. He's the new leader, and this time around, Walker really needs to like be a little bit more like be like me. Don't do anything rash. Don't do anything just because in my name. Do it because it's right, which is kind of a weird thing to do, but okay. And yeah, because Walker is our hero of the story, but at the end of the day, like, he is not a perfect hero. He has a lot of issues, and so like the question of him being a leader now is kind of difficult. Like, it's one thing to get respect from people you work with and just respect in general from others, but it's another whole thing to lead them. It's two different things. But they don't get to talk about it much because his son, which I coincidentally forgot, he was in like the tail end of season 1, like, oh yeah, I thought you were going to be here more often. Then they wrote in the Daverson. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. So Walker heads off so they can get some private time alone. We also get to meet James's ex-wife for the first time. And I'm just like, yeah, I wonder, I'm not surprised why they divorced, especially, as we get later on scenes. Like, it's not even like, I'm pretty sure they didn't even have arguments per se. It was just him probably not spending enough time at home, which is normally when you're in law enforcement or you're in, the private investigation world, or if you're a lawyer, that is one of the things that a lot of people have difficulties of, especially once you start rising through the ranks, is the work-life balance, where, yeah, work is important, but you need to have a life. If you choose to have a wife or a partner or kids or just responsibilities that is not at work, you have to make the effort to do it. And you have to be aware of that, because otherwise they'll disappear. That happened in James's case. Or even jumping ahead a little bit, when they had their one-on-one scene where, yeah, it was happy times when, James was still just a regular ranger, and he was just, bouncing around from place to place. And, but he still made it time to, be there for his wife, especially when she was pregnant with their son. And yeah, the jokes are there. And you obviously coming from a divorced couple halfway through the childhood years, as we'll call it, I understand that there are moments where, like, yeah, they're on good terms and they could talk like just regular human beings without there being anything else or any arguments. I view them as like, yeah, it's kind of the same thing where one could assume that, oh, maybe she does still have feelings for him, or maybe James does still want to be with her, but at the same time, like, no, sometimes it's just friendly banter, because, like, at the end of the day, they do have a child together. They have to think of the betterment of him as he's finishing up his development, and then him going to go off on his own. And that's something that they probably got accustomed to. But even James just mentioned, like, we haven't had an honest talk in like over a year, or almost a year, and that's another thing they have to work through. That even though, yeah, they're not married, but they still got to put in the effort to like actually have a working communicative relationship. But just these couple scenes, just seeing them together is just indicating that, like, yeah, maybe James will get back with her, maybe it won't. Maybe it's just another one of those, like, yeah, you're the father of my child, you're the mother of my child, let's just, be civil about this, because we're connected to the hip as long as we both live, so there's really nothing more we could do then. Walker's making any sort of effort to try and find any sort of connection to who the shooter might be, and obviously, with Soretto and everything. So the only option he thinks of is, I'm going to go to the corrupt DA who was a part of my wife's murder last season, and he goes to pay him a visit, and I completely forgot what he looked like for a second. So I'm like, who are you? Are we just supposed to, like, remember, because, like, the music and the tone and the camera shots were, like, making me believe, like, okay, are we supposed to know him? And then, like, the more he talks, like, oh, now I remember. Because, again, it's been a hot minute. Even though Walker has had a very weird airing schedule, it still reminded me, like, oh, yeah, I forgot you're still around. And honestly, I thought he died last season. I don't know why. I guess they brought him back because, like, they needed some dramatic moments and, that sort of thing. And they talk about things, he's obviously still trying to get a little bit of Walker's head about bringing up Emily, not directly, but, like, indirectly, just bringing up his actions. And, he's just being very... It kind of reminds me of the scene from 22 Jump Street where Janko and Schmidt go to meet up with the bad guys from the first movie. And they're just, like, questioning, like, guys, the answer's right there. Or just, why are you looking at me for? Like, there's another direction you can go in. Stop wasting your time here. And that's kind of like the vibe he's giving off Walker. Like, why... Maybe it's not Soretto. Maybe you got to really look deeper. Like, you can't just assume, like, oh, Soretto's the big hot ticket. It's got to be Soretto. Like, no, there may be something else that you may not be aware about, James. Or maybe it's something else, that you got to... you're a ranger, so you're an investigator. So you have to investigate and figure it out. So that's all he leaves him there. But I can also give both Jared Padalecki and, Cordell Walker credit, because in this scene, you feel the tension. Like... Not even the facial expression, in the eyes of, like, yeah, this Walker still wants to beat the crap out of this guy for his involvement. He still wants to, because that's just, when you have someone that involved in the death of someone you cared about, like, he's right there. He can easily throw maybe a good 7 punches in his face before the cops take him away, or the person guards take him away. There was a chance, but he didn't take it. Because at the end of the day, like, he knew, like, I have integrity. I'm trying to be different. I'm trying to be better. I will not harm him, regardless of what he did to my family. And I will give him that showcases, like, growth, that he's holding himself back. And it may hurt a lot now, but eventually, should we see him again, like, it'll probably get a little bit more easier. Because, then time also heals most wounds, so to speak. Can I traverse this to you? Yes, I can. I'm trying to remember where we go. I know that... Do we get any other scenes with anyone else? I know the kids are kind of sidelined this week. Same with Grandpa Walker towards the end. I think it was just these core 3 for a moment. And then I already mentioned the talks. And I do believe we get like a little bit of a small time jump. A little bit, like a few days, maybe even a week. And James is still in the hospital, and Walker's kind of giving him an update that, yeah, there's still so far no official suspects yet, but we hope that we'll find something very soon. And also he does let him know about that. Yeah, I went to go visit the dickback DA, and James is not happy by Walker's decision because, well, multitude of reasons, considering Walker's personal attachment to him, in terms of with Emily and all, as well as, that even though he's out with Soretto, he's still very, very much like as a, you didn't really want to do that because you're going to alert, like, what direction you're looking in, which is going to kind of raise suspicions or create awareness. And yeah, Walker wasn't really thinking of that because, again, Walker is just a ranger. He's not thinking of the bigger picture here because he's not accustomed to it. And, he and James starts getting a little bit chewed out a little bit. They start arguing a little bit, and then James starts to have a heart attack, or he starts to have complications with his heart. So the nurses have to get pulled in and trying to resuscitate him. And Trey, again, being a combat medic, he does say that I think he has an infection from the gunshot wound, so this could be another battle for him to go through. And that's something else. And also, just in general, like Cordell, he's really feeling the fate of the world right now because, he has to not only make sure the captain's safe, but he also has to find a shooter and also keep Trey safe because, it was around Trey's house, these 2 instances occurred. So it's a lot for him to handle, as well as he's the de facto captain of the station right now. So he needs to go back and report and also give, like, some orders around and, like, let them know, like, yeah, here's the battle plan. Here are the answers to your question, but he doesn't have them. He doesn't because he's never been up to this task. And he admits that to Jerry, who comes by to give some flowers to Captain James. And it's still a little bit awkward between them because, you know, Walker is like, you know, still got feelings for her and they still haven't freaking talked about it, man. Come on, it's been months. Talk about your feelings, man. Well, he does talk about his feelings, just not about his feelings for her. That makes any sense. Yeah, where are we gonna go with that? Yeah, so they talk for a bit, and you know, he's kind of opening up that, you know, for a long time he's always had a partner. It's someone to like really for him to go to and like get that advice or knock him straight or like put him in the right direction. Whether that was Emily, whether that was James, whether that was then recently Mickey. He doesn't have that right now. You know, he doesn't have that partner he can go to right now for like, give me a direction, give me some answers. And because now he's the one getting asked questions to get the answers out of, but truth be told, he just doesn't. That kind of, you know, baffles him. Like, he doesn't know what to do now, and he's scared of messing it up because, you know, not only is he's just captain for now, but also like maybe down the road he could be. And that kind of scares him a bit. But Jerry kind of reaffirms, and again, it does showcase that in the regard they're still best friends. They're still very close to each other. So even you could just take the romantic component away. They're like, yeah, they're still really close to each other. They know each other very well. So of course she would know the right advice to give him, and it kind of gives Walker a little bit of a pep in his step to like, okay, let me realign myself and kind of focus on what really to do next. Because I think it was just after this heart attack scene that. Something does happen. This is where my memory blanks. I don't really know. I guess I was just figuring out with the camera because, you know, it's we filmed the How I Met Your Father quick impressions, first impressions not that long ago, and we had to use another camera for that, so I had to get the OBS setup back up to my camera specs. So it took me a while, so I may have turned away for a bit, but I know the next scene is James is fine. He's still a little bit out of it, and then some guy shows up. Again, we're finding a little bit more about James's past, a little bit about like he's done some not questionable things, but like, you know, like kind of like, you know, one of those opinionated things that you might have a different interpretation of it if you were the one hearing it and then taking it in. And for James's case, someone shows up with a gun in his room, and for what the vibe I get from it, and it could just be now. I don't think they confirm whether or not this was the same shooter as before. It could very well be, but I can't confirm. But even at first, James is working on who are you. And then the more they talk, like they had history. I think at some point he was probably just like a low-level convict, and James felt bad for him, and he was trying to give him a hand. But then the higher-ups got involved and really put him for a loop. And then, you know, James couldn't really do much, and he could only stand from the sidelines while someone he promised to help him and, you know, to like give him protection and said like, yeah, you're going to be fine, man. We're going to do what we can to like give you the best possible deal possible. And he didn't. And you feel the tension a little bit in the scene. I don't think it was the strongest tension in the world because, like, you know, okay, if James survived one near-death bullet, he's definitely going to survive this. So I didn't really feel much tension in this scene, especially even after Walker came in, like, put the third side of this Wrangler. But, you know, even with that, it still didn't really help. But I still felt the emotion that, like, you know, James is trying to reach out and trying to even make a difference, trying to make an impact with his words and not with a badge or a gun, you know. That he doesn't need a position of power to like really make a change. And I feel like he was close, but then since Cordell already alerted the SWAT team and, you know, he couldn't really give them the order to stand down. And SWAT gets in, one of the shooters just sees the gun and around James and he shoots the guy and he's immediately dead. And, you know, James is just heartbroken that he had a chance to like really reach out to someone. And it was just another case of like, it was just too late. It just wasn't meant to be. And, you know, I feel like even just that small incident is going to like really affect him going forward, because after we were done with that and we get to his elevator scene, he gets to talk to his wife his ex-wife about what was his plans, that like, you know, he was going to be a captain not for a while, make a big difference, and then have someone else maybe younger take over the role or really be the one to like cement all the changes. And he was thinking for Mickey, like, yeah, Cordell's his best friend, but Mickey's the one. Like, Mickey was the one that was going to be not just the first female... Was it the first woman Texas Ranger? I think that's what they called in the first season. I think it was. She was going to be the first woman captain. And honestly, I believe him. Like, you know, even though we only got Mickey for like a season and a half or a season and some change, like, I do believe, yeah, she would have been a very instrumental part of changing things. And who knows if that was going to be a season 2 or season 3 things where he would have stepped down. And again, he's still kind of young. He and Cordell are still in their 40s. So it's still kind of early to start thinking about retirement, but you know, she was old. Maybe he could have retired earlier, like delegated himself to a smaller position. I mean, look at Grey's Anatomy. Weber has been multiple positions of higher power for years and years and years, and even though someone else takes over that role, he's still there. He just takes a back seat. So I'm like, yeah, it's possible. So, and again, there's a scene with in that with his wife, that his ex-wife, that there's still maybe hope for them. You know that he still lists her as their emergency contact despite their divorce, and you know she would like to talk to him as just like two people that are not in need of an emergency to get to, and you know maybe rebuild the connection there. And you know that's, and regardless of anything, it's just like rebuilding a good working relationship with the mother of your child. That's another thing too. So it just doesn't have to be purely romantical. It could just be, let's get to just being good with each other. You know, that we're not at each other's throat, that we can actually, you know, agree on something, which is definitely something that he's going to need going forward. So everything's fine. He's going to get discharged, and you know, the kids try to call their grandma for the good news. Grandpa Walker gives Trey a thank you for, you know, Trey's earlier assistance then at the start of things, that it did definitely make a difference. And Trey is still very much open to like figuring out what is next and trying to see what the next move is. Obviously, him moving out of his and Mickey's home is one of the first steps to kind of get out of that familiar environment, because he knows and we knows, yeah, Mickey's not going to come back as a regular probably for the entire show's run, because whatever reason she left for, but he has to think about himself now and figure out what is next for him, and that him being surrounded by the idea of Mickey is not going to be helpful for him. So as a really good Samaritan move he did, Grandpa Walker gives him a key to the Walker Ranch, that if he wants to, he could move in there and kind of, you know, get his bearings and figure out what is next. So I'm like, that's one of the cool things when you own your own properties. Like, you know, if you ever meet someone that really needs a helping hand and, you know, they're really good about it, then yeah, this was it. And it showcases that, yeah, Trey still has direction. He still has potential going forward. We still need to figure out what exactly that is. And I think Cordell and James just have a talk about just, you know, the impact of things and what he wants to do with the department and like what he hopes to be in the future. And yeah, that does definitely bring up Cordell being in charge eventually at some point down the line. But, you know, even that's still something that still scares the hell out of Cordell, because even the brief time he did it, he was already scared shitless with no support system. So it is definitely something for them to explore in the future as we progress through the uncertain story of Walker. And to wrap it up, we get another dickbag DA gets another visit from the other Walker brother, Liam. I honestly thought this was just going to be a moment where Liam was just going to like curse him out. It's like, you ruined me, you corrupted me. But no, it's kind of a weird conversation to have, and it's definitely something Liam needs to have as he's, you know, still kind of really unsure what's next for him, really, because, you know, he's been suspended as ADA, and he really doesn't know where he has to go next. And this dickbag former DA, he does give him a little bit of a direction, like, look, whatever reason, go to my house. My wife or someone close to me is still taking care of it. So go there, they'll let you in, go to my desk. There's a false bottom, open it, you'll find some interesting files that, let's just say, may pertain to you. What do those files include? What are the contents of that files? We don't know. And we won't find out until next week, hopefully, because that was it for this week's episode of Walker. So for me, yeah, this was a solid episode through. Definitely the focus on Walker and James, especially more on James and just their getting a mental check-in and figuring out what is their direction going forward. Walker trying to figure out, again, like he's still like navigating this solo life again, and that's causing him a little bit of issue. And you know, James is now more than ever about, you know, that he was close to death a couple times this entire episode. So him figuring out like what is next for the station, what is next for his successor, and just in general, what is next for him in terms of his mission going forward, because like this can all really affect him to the freaking rock hard core. So it is something that he needs to think about going forward. And now that with Mickey out of the way, he really needs to think who could potentially take over and like pick up where he left off. And Liam's journey to discoverance We'll find out how that goes. We're really done. Whether it relates to the DA or Soretto or Captain James or someone else, I don't know. We'll find out very soon. We always do. But yeah, for me, I really found this to be a solid episode. Definitely, just despite the cliffhanger being kind of boring at the start of it, still helped make an interesting premise for this episode, which I really enjoyed. So with that being said, I'm gonna give this episode. My mic's falling over. Why? Two thumbs up. Kind of quickly. Let me know in the comments below, what did you think of this week's episode of Walker? I'm always down for conversation down there below, guys. And I believe that's going to do it for me today, everyone. So if you're unaware of this, has been What's the Two from ActionX. We're reviewing every episode in the second season of Walker. If you want to know what we're doing normally, What's the Two, besides our Walker episode reviews, we're currently doing Rookie Season 4 episode reviews and Nancy Drew Season 3 episode reviews each and every week after their brand new episodes on ABC and the CW, respectfully. So go check them out there. If you don't care about Walker, you're in luck. We'll be back next week with another episode review, so stay tuned for that. So far, the picking's too good. We're bound for a hiatus. Another Walker hiatus. I sense it coming. It's coming, and it's going to be soon. Sorry if I sound corny there. But if you do, again, please subscribe to us on youtube.com/ActionX videos. Ring that bell for notification when our next episode review is live. Please also follow us on social media to stay up to date with any sort of updates for the channel. And please also like, favorite, share this review if you want to, but it helps us get it out there to other members of the Ranger Nation who have yet to discover us. Oh, not Ranger Nation, Texas Rangers. I apologize. But until next week, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Please, of course, stay safe out there. Be good to each other. And as always, peace out.